Brady. Our next speaker will be delivering his Pathways Level 1 Project 3, Researching and Presenting. Phil Brady will be telling us about the charity Bloodwater and its co-founder, Gina Nordella. Bloodwater is a nonprofit that began 13 years ago to provide clean water to African villages, but has done so much more. Working throughout 11 countries in Africa, Bloodwater has provided health care for more than 62,000 people in HIV-affected areas and has partnered with communities to provide clean water for more than 1 million people in Africa. Along the way, she's faced many harsh realities that have tested her faith, encountered corruption and brokenness that nearly destroyed everything she fought for, and learned the wishful thinking will get you very far. This speech is 5 to 7 minutes. It's titled 1,000 Wells. Please welcome to the podium, Phil Brady.
This is a story about a young girl who wanted to do something to help the world. It's a story about Africa. And it's a story that's in all of us. When we try our best and we fail, we somehow have to pick ourselves back up and move on. Gina Nordella was just a young girl living in the Northwest, but she had a heart for helping other people. And after middle school, on the way home, she would stop by a homeless shelter and help cook the evening meal. In high school, she found other ways of serving and helping other people. And by the time she got in college, a whole world of charity and opportunity opened up for her. And after college, she was trying to figure out what to do with her life. And she somehow got hooked up with a Christian rock group out of Nashville, Tennessee, that had been to Africa. If you have a hit record anywhere in the world, you're going to go to Africa, and you're going to go on safari, and you're going to meet the people, and you're going to be inspired. And if you go to any of these rock groups on TV, you'll see videos, music videos that they've shot in Africa, because the inspiration is so incredible. And so this group called Jars of Clay came back from Africa, and they knew they wanted to do something to help the people of Africa. Africa needed clean water. They needed help with the problem of AIDS, and the Jars of Clay came up with this name for their charity, Bloodwater. They wanted to help people who were infected with AIDS, and they wanted to provide clean water. But they still didn't know how, and somehow they got in touch with met Jenna, and she said, I want to help. And so they took off on the road, touring, and she stayed in Nashville, living at one of their houses, and began to put this charity together. She had to learn about what a charity was. How do you form a charity? Eventually, she went to Africa and saw firsthand and met the beautiful people and met people in villages and learned their culture and learned all about their food, especially the food. And she learned about their needs and came back so inspired, and she was trying to find more time with this group that's always on the road. Finally, they cleaned out a berth on the bus and said, come with us. And she thought she had died and gone to heaven. She's traveling with a Christian rock group on the road. She's taking tickets. She's doing whatever she can to help them when they're in their concerts and when they're in the bus trying to sleep. She's waking them up and talking about Africa and talking about this charity. So they finally came up with the idea of putting wells down in Africa. And their goal was 1,000 wells. So they sent her again to Africa to find out, how do you put these wells down? And she learned many, many things. She learned that from the people in Africa, that people come over all the time and sink wells. They'll put a well down here and a well down there. But if you put it down where the water's alkaline or it's bad or it's contaminated, you're not doing anything. And it's not just putting down the well, it's protecting the well. And they pointed to a spring where water was just bubbling out of the ground. And they said, this is a wonderful spring. However, it's unprotected. About that time, a water buffalo walks up and begins to drink out of the spring and relieve itself into the spring at the same time. So they realized that it's not just sinking the well, it's protecting the area where you've got water. The other thing she realized was that they don't really have a lot of sanitation, and they don't teach sanitation. So they began a program of sanitation to where they would find people in each village, teach them how to use hygiene methods that would help protect them. Because if you've got clean water but dirty hands, it doesn't help. And the other thing they wanted to do something was to bring medicines to Africa to help with the AIDS epidemic. So when she got back to the United States, she got to working with Jars of Clay again. And they decided that they would have a small infomercial halftime of their shows and pass out popcorn buckets and ask people to give to their charity. And the money began to pour in. At first it was just a trickle of just a few dollars, and then it became millions of dollars. And then they started sinking wells in Africa, one well after another. They had people, boots on the ground in Africa, putting down these wells for them and letting them know, here's what the well cost. The charity was running fine. Everything was great. She had several trips to Africa, met with those doing the work in Africa. And then one day, one of the people in Africa who had been like the #2 person in the organization on the ground left the organization. And it concerned her a little bit. Why did this person leave? Everything was going well. Then they found out another charity that was also getting support from these boots on the ground in Africa had pulled out. So they did an audit and found out that anytime you got money flowing in places, you're going to have problems. And the fellow running the crew that was putting down the wells in Africa would put a well down, and he would invoice 2 different charities for the same well. So one charity had pulled out, and then Jars of Clay's charity, Blood Water, was on the verge of pulling out. So she went to Africa, and she went to these people, and she was hoping for some confession, some contrition, some I'm sorry, I was wrong. But what she got was, without this money, we can't put wells down, we can't help other people. And her Western mode of thinking that said honesty and fair play met up with a greed and a way of thinking that she didn't understand. She had to work through this, and she had to figure it out. They put 1,000 wells down in Africa, and Blood Water continues to do the work of providing clean water. But she learned a very important lesson that we could learn from too. And that lesson was, she had to quit trying to save the world and love it, even when it breaks your heart. Madam Toastmaster.